Okay, so I'm kind of bored. So I'm just doing a video. I mean, I don't know that I would say I'm bored, but I've kind of exhausted my I'm tapped out on entertainment. And so I figure it's a good time to contribute to your favorite video hosting platform. Who knows, maybe somebody might find one of my videos entertaining or something. So I'm providing an alternative, I guess. But I'm just saying this right off the bat to let you know kind of that I don't really have anything. There's a lot supposedly going on in the world, but what do I know? I mean, you got all that shit popping off in Israel and Iran and Lebanon and Pakistan and all these places over there. But I don't know. You got that going down. And then you got what else you got going on? All of the tornadoes in fucking I don't know, what is that? Was it Alabama or some shit? I don't know. Okay. And and these people, they put up the videos giving their opinion and their hot take on it and stuff, and it's mostly just hype, and it's kind of like the word news. That's what all this supposedly is, news. But the word news implies that it's something new. And, that's the problem is that it's not new, It's not new. Like you take, for example, all those, whatever's going on with those tornadoes, man, that displaced all those people. People are acting like, when these channels on BitChute and stuff, because I mostly just use BitChute to watch videos. YouTube is terrible, you guys. I'm sorry, man. I can't even. It's terrible. I mean, it can be okay sometimes, but usually it's pretty bad, man. When it comes to finding videos to watch. It's bad. Like it's all just propaganda. Not that BitChute it isn't all just propaganda, but it's a little less insulting to the intelligence. The videos on BitChute are generally less insulting to a person's intelligence than the garbage that's all over on YouTube. All this promoted fucking garbage all over YouTube. See, my videos aren't promoted at all, and they never will be, because that's the rigged game. That's how the rigged game works, which is fine. I've accepted it. I don't care. I never did a channel for the purposes of making a living. Like, the idea of making a living doing a YouTube channel is just such a joke. But whatever. But the Hurricane Helena, is it Alabama or I can't remember, man. Georgia. It's in Georgia. But anyways, yeah. So these are presented as news stories. For example, the Georgia thing. And all these people got displaced by the Hurricane Helena, or I guess it was a hurricane or a tornado. And it's presented as news, and news implies that this is a new story. Like, this is new, and the problem is that it's not new at all. When you talk about displaced people in this country, see, because the news story is, all these people got displaced in Georgia, because of the hurricane or tornado, and they're not getting any help. like they're not getting any help at all, and they're all have been displaced, so they don't have running water, they don't have electricity, all these things. And this is supposed to be news. Well, news implies that it's something new, and it's not. Like, all you got to do is take one good look at the homelessness epidemic crisis in this country, and you'll see that this is not new. All of these fucking probably millions of homeless people, homeless U.S. citizens. I'm not talking about the immigrants that are coming over illegally. I'm talking about U.S. citizens. The millions that are displaced and eating out of dumpsters and shit. Like, nobody has ever come to help them. And when the news reports on it, the news report is always the same. There are a bunch of lazy, mentally ill, drug-addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerates who failed to take personal responsibility for their lives through poor life decisions. So all media demonizes these displaced homeless, millions of displaced homeless people, just demonizes them. And then pats all of you on the head, telling you what a good job you've been doing. Look, you're not one of those lazy, mentally ill, drug-addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerates. What a great person you are. You know? And so, you know, all these displaced people, they're being ignored and not getting any help all these decades. This has been going on for decades, and it's just exponentially getting worse and worse, like insanely worse. And we're talking about elderly homeless people, children, homeless elderly, homeless women, homeless vets, and the media, the communist media is constantly lying to you and telling you, oh, all those people are just worthless people. They're all, just ignore them. They're all just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal vagrants. You know, just they deserve their displacement. They deserve, and they don't deserve any help. And they're just a burden on all of us wonderful people. That's all the media ever says. And this has been going on for decades, and nobody has ever protested it. No group of people, like, nobody has ever, like, been putting out YouTube videos protesting it, like saying this is fucking wrong, and this is not good, because if they're going to treat this entire sect of U.S. citizens this way and demonize them publicly and nationally and internationally on mainstream media all the time, they're coming for all of you and me next. Like, we're next. And nobody ever cared. Nobody stood up or questioned it. Everybody just went along with this narrative. All these homeless people are all just worthless people that deserve their misery, and just ignore them, and you know, and everybody just went along with it. But see, now it's happening to other sects of the population, like in Georgia, the tornadoes, and in Florida. It's not just Georgia, it's Florida. And I mean, these stories, and people like me are supposed to be shocked, like, oh my God, like I'm supposed to get scared. It's like, dude, I've been staring at the homeless fucking thing, the abyss of this homeless epidemic in this country for decades. And in shock that nobody's standing up against this or doing anything about it or even gives a fuck. And to the point, like, after staring into that abyss for year after year after year for over a decade, nothing surprises me anymore. So then these tornadoes come and displace all these people in Florida and Georgia, and now they're all homeless and stuff, and nobody's coming to help them, and shit, and nobody in all these organizations, they're all doing nothing, and the government is doing nothing. Well, that's identical to the homeless thing. And so I'm not surprised at all. And in a sense, I almost don't even feel sorry for them people, because those are the same people, they never cared when all this shit is going on to the homeless, which it still is to this day. They never cared. And many times they just participated in kicking the homeless when they're down and cheering on mainstream media, telling them that, demonizing all these homeless people, like nobody ever cared. And all these people that never cared, now it's happening to them. And now they're fucking like shitting their pants and reaching out on YouTube and all these platforms and trying to trying to say, hey, help us, like this is wrong. And it's like, yeah, it is wrong, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't that crazy how that just nobody cares? Like, isn't that crazy how that happens? You know, and this country is so fucking completely divided by class, by race, by religion, by anything and everything. You name it. You name it. Baseball team, football team, the masked versus the unmasked, the vaxxed versus the unvaxxed, the Republican versus the Democrat, you know, the poor versus the rich, and on and on and on. And like this whole entire country is so completely and utterly divided that when one of these groups of, one of these sects or factions of Americans gets fucked over, nobody cares. Because everybody's divided, like nobody gives a flying shit. And it goes beyond like sects or groups of people. There is tons of infighting within every group. Like it's all just rugged individualism. That's all it is. It's like, I'm getting mine and fuck you. I don't care who you are. I don't even care if you're my mom or my grandma or whoever you are. Like, fuck you. As long as I get mine. And so these news stories come out trying to shock people and like, oh my God, like somebody needs to do something about this. And it's like, yeah, dude, I lived on the street for 10 years. I was, technically, I've been homeless almost my entire life. I was born into fucking abject poverty. And by the time I was 18, I was fucking eating fucking garbage out of dumpsters and remained in that for like 10 years. And nobody ever came to help me. Nobody ever cared. And you know, and so, yeah, I know what it's like to go without electricity and without water and without food. And nobody gives a fuck. And on top of that, the whole time I was on the street, what was the mainstream media news saying? Is that me and everybody like me on the streets, we're all just a bunch of lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerates who failed to take personal responsibility for our lives through poor life decisions. Period. That's it. End of discussion. No need to look any further. Anybody that's living on the street, they're just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerate who's failed to take personal, you know? And I went to all the homeless organizations. None of those homeless organizations do jack shit for anybody, ever. All they do is do nothing. They do absolutely nothing. They're check collectors. They all sit around, stare at the clock, and fuck around on Facebook until it's 5 p.m. and then they go home. They do not care. Nobody cares. And so these people all of a sudden out of nowhere get displaced because of a tornado or a hurricane, and they're just like shocked. They're like, oh my God. They're like, how could this possibly happen to me? You know, I'm not one of those lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, like, and so then they think that people are going to care. They think, oh my God, look at, and then people pretend to care. You know, they'll mirror the video. That it's like people are so apathetic. The most they'll ever do is share it on Facebook or some social media. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing is happening. I know what I'll do. I'll share it on my Facebook page, and that'll be my way of you know, doing something to you know, for change, to help them. I'll share it on, like, nobody cares. You know, I could do an hour-long video explaining the whole psychology behind awareness campaigns. Awareness campaigns do absolutely nothing except for steal people's money. The only thing an awareness campaign is for is to get people to send money. Because nobody's going to do anything, but maybe I'll send $5, you know, then I'll feel like I contributed and did something. And a lot of times the awareness campaigns are total lies about shit that isn't even really real, you know. And you see them all the time, everywhere, constantly everywhere. I mean, dude, like, I lived in California for fucking 25 years, on and off for 25 years. I worked in the homeless service provider field doing street outreach 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for like 10 years. Dude, the masses of homeless people that I have met and engaged with and seen and observed, like, the amount of displaced people in this country is totally off the fucking charts, and mainstream media is lying to everybody about it. They're trying to tell you, they're covering the whole thing. It's a massive cover-up. You see fucking hordes and hordes and mobs and masses of homeless people all over, and then the news just ignores it. They don't even mention it. Lie by omission. They say no, and when they do cover it, it's always It's always that they're lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerates. They're leeches to society. They're all this just nothing but lies. They'll blame fires. All these fucking big fires that are burning California up. It's always the homeless's fault. Oh, though some homeless guy did that. Always. Everything is the homeless's fault. Everything. Oh, the homeless burnt that shit down. They burnt down Santa Barbara or Santa Ana or something. Oh yeah. It's always Meanwhile, the rich are the ones getting all the property once it's burnt down, like Hawaii burns down, and then BlackRock comes in and swoops up all that property. But who did it? No, BlackRock didn't start that fire. That was some homeless guy. It never ends. And all these people, they're completely checked out, like total mass psychosis. And then you look, the mass amounts of people proclaiming that they're awake and they're red pilled and that they're tuned into what's going on. They have no fucking idea. And these are the same people that are pumping out these videos about what's going on in Georgia and Florida. And it's like, oh my gosh, all these people are displaced and nobody's doing anything. The government's not helping them and all that. And it's like, yeah, dude, I've been staring into that abyss for 20 fucking years. And now you're telling me this is some new story that I'm supposed to care about? Like, what about all this other shit that's been going on decades prior and the exact identical same thing and nobody's fucking cared at all? But now all of a sudden, because it happens to some group of people halfway across the country that are homeowners and this and that, like everybody's supposed to just jump up and care? No, it's not the way reality works. And nobody cares, again, because this country is so fucking divided. The rich versus the poor, the working class versus middle class, the middle class versus the poor, the homeless versus the rich versus the working class, the rich versus the poor, the rich versus it never ends. The masked versus the unmasked, the Red Sox fans versus the White Sox fans, it just never fucking ends. All the racial division, everything, it just fucking, and the majority of the masses, they just buy into all this division and drink that Jim Jones Kool-Aid like it's water, like it's a part of life. It's a requirement for life to just participate in all this division. Nobody cares about uniting anybody. And that's the other hilarious thing about these, like when these stories come out about Georgia and Florida and these massive people getting displaced by tornadoes and shit, all of a sudden they're like talking about, well, we all need to band together and form communities and unite. Like all of a sudden now it's time, right? Now that it's happening to them, it's time. But why not like 20 years ago? Why now all of a sudden now? Not 10 years ago, not 15 years ago, not 20 years ago, but now, now all of a sudden it's time. That's because all this shit has hit home for people that have never had to experience this. Meanwhile, masses of the U.S. population have been experiencing it prior for decades already. Eating out of dumpsters for 10 years, all this shit. And nobody ever gave a fuck. Nobody was jumping up to save them or band together, form communities and unite to help all these masses of elderly homeless, for example, that are all over this fucking country wandering around, elderlies eating out of dumpsters and getting arrested by cops because they have a fucking shopping cart that they carry their sleeping bag in, and they're getting arrested by cops because they're homeless. Elderlies. Nobody has ever jumped up and say, hey, we need to band together and form communities and unite as a people. Never. But then when it happens to them, then all of a sudden they're saying, hey, we need to unite and band together. And it's like, no, we don't. I don't know who the fuck you're talking to. Maybe your echo chamber, all your other middle class friends that have always had it easy. Why don't you call them? Since they're so caring and they care so much about all this shit, call them. Don't fucking come run. Don't ask me. Where were you when I was homeless eating out of dumpsters for 10 years? Where have you been all this time? Well, that I was displaced and without running water and electricity and without food and without shelter and just abandoned by everyone and demonized by all mainstream media nationwide. Where were any of you then? But now all of a sudden that you're displaced which you've never experienced in your life, and now all of a sudden you're experiencing it, and now everybody needs to jump up and unite and band together and form communities to help you and shit? Like, fuck you. I don't fucking think so.